Our first reading and gospel today feature widows as key characters, interacting with Elijah the prophet and with Jesus. It might help us understand these scriptures better to learn more about the place of widows in the scriptures. Father Eugene Laverdiere, writing about our gospel passage, says, "In the early Jewish and New Testament world, widows had no rights and depended on their oldest son or their own father. In the event they did not have a son or their father had died, they depended on the charity of the community, whether Jewish or Christian. As such, widows were symbolic of all who were poor and helpless." Jesus in today's gospel criticizes the scribes who fail in this obligation toward widows. And then he sits down at the temple treasury and observes a widow making a tiny offering, one which represents a great sacrifice out of all she had. Her gift was in contrast to those who gave from their surplus. Today's scriptures lead me to reflect on Pope Francis' encyclical Fratelli Tutti, in which the Holy Father examines those who, like the widow in the scriptures, are among those who are poor and helpless in our day. In commenting on the encyclical, John Carr, a scholar at Georgetown University, writes that, quote, "Pope Francis insists that those who are poor or vulnerable, those who live with disabilities or discrimination, and immigrants and refugees are not issues or problems, but sisters and brothers, part of one human family." Now, we may have a variety of opinions about how best to carry out the Holy Father's challenge. Some may even accuse a preacher on this Sunday of bringing politics into church. But this charge is something the Pope anticipates. John Carr writes that Pope Francis, quote, "urges us to move beyond personal, ideological, economic, and political isolation to encounter the lives and hopes of others, especially those who have been excluded. It is a call to conversion, to think and act anew, not to a political program or ideological agenda." It's a Sunday to examine those we know or meet personally, those served by our parish outreach, those we pass on the way to church or school or work or other business, and recall what Jesus saw that day at the temple.